The topics and opinions expressed on the following show are solely those of the hosts and their guests and not those of W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4WN Radio, its employees, or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4WN Radio.
Hello and welcome to the Success for Women show, where you can view us on Talk4 TV and listen to us on the Women for Women Network. I am Dr. Madeline Ann Lewis, your host, and my mission is to help women accelerate the path to success. So today's topic is from 0 to 2 billion, and my guest is Jim Estill. I tell you what, if you make sure that if you have any questions, that you put the questions in our chat room, and we will definitely try to get to them for you. So in the meantime, let me just give you a little background on Jim Estill. Jim is the CEO of Danby Appliances. He's a Canadian technology entrepreneur, executive, and philanthropist. He started his first computer distribution business from the trunk of his car while in university and grew that business to $2 billion in sales. Jim has invested in, mentored, and advised over 150 technology companies, including Blackberry. He joined their board before they went public and served for 13 years. Jim was the EY Entrepreneur of the Year 2019 Ontario winner and has received both the Order of Canada and Order of Ontario. And just in case you do not know what the Order of Canada is, I made sure that I looked it up because I wanted to be able to tell you. And what the Order of Ontario is, it's the province's highest honor. It's reserved for Ontarians from all fields of endeavor and background whose excellence has left a lasting legacy in the province of Canada and beyond. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce my guest to the Successful Women show, Jim Estill. Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me.
How are you? I mean, it's great to have you on the show. It's great to see you again. I know that we were on a panel a little while back, and I really enjoyed it. And I loved some of the things that you talked about. So that's why I wanted to bring you on the show and just kind of have you share your success and just kind of how you got there. I know I mentioned about you starting with selling out of the trunk of your car, but just kind of tell us about Jim Estill. Tell us how you got started.
Well, I am an engineer. I was in school and I wanted to design circuit boards. And I needed a computer to do that. And I got a better deal if I bought two. So I bought two computers and then sold one. And someone else wanted a computer. So I bought two more. And then someone wanted a printer. And then someone wanted a monitor. And next thing you know, I'm buying and selling computer hardware, software, and peripherals. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, I was designing some circuit boards, had an engineering company. At some point, I got too big for the space. I probably had 10 people helping with computer distribution and 10 people in engineering. So I split off the design company into a different company. And that company is still in business today and sold last year, actually. The name of that company's Connect-Tech. And then I continued in computer distribution. And so I just kept buying and selling more and more computers, and eventually we got to a couple billion in sales.
Wow. And all of this started out of the trunk of your car.
Yeah. And the reason it started in the trunk of my car is I was in university living in a the safest place was my trunk of my car, not in with my roommates and whatnot. So, and back then cars were big, trunks were big, and computers were expensive. So you could put a lot of dollars in a trunk of a car compared to I guess today everything's gotten smaller, but still that's why it's from the trunk of the car, really.
Okay. So that was not your original plan from the beginning, though, to get into that type of business, or was it?
No. No. My original idea was I was going to design circuit boards and I was going to do engineering stuff, and that was my original plan. But I'm an entrepreneur, so I try a lot of things, and the computers sold, and that part of the company grew.
Wow. I tell you what, building a business to that level, I know that's not something that's done every day. So what do you think it takes to kind of reach that level of success in business?
Well, the first thing is I would not have been able to do it had I not started small. And so you have to start from where you are. And when I was doing $1 million in sales, I would look at people that were doing 2 million and say, what do I need to do 2 million? Then look at 5 million, then look at 10, then look at 100, and then look at 200, look at 500. So I was always looking at the next level. The other thing I always say is I am successful because I have had more failures than most people. So a failure is not trying. Having a failure does not make me a failure. I always say fail often, fail fast, fail cheap. And fortunately, none of my failures have been so catastrophic that I'm mortally injured. All I've done is I've stubbed my toe numerous times, and it's the people that don't try and don't step up to bat that don't win.
So when you started out, though, did you think you would be running your own business? Like, I know you said you wanted to do the, circuit boards, thing like that, but was the mindset that you wanted to run your own business?
Yeah, I had decided that I wanted to run my own business. When I was in high school, I wanted to work at a church camp, but the church camp was only open for 1 month. And so no employer would hire me to work for the other months. And of course, church camp doesn't pay anything to speak of. So I started painting houses. So I got the bug of working for myself by painting houses and hiring my brothers and hiring my friends. And that's how I funded my way through university. And so I knew I wanted to work for myself. And starting right out from university, it was also a healthy time for me, because I lived like a student. I had very low overheads, and I always tell people it's a great time to start a company. Had I failed, I could still get a job. No one's going to say, "Oh, you failed in business, therefore I'll never hire you." No, they'll still hire me. And in this day and age, they probably think, "Oh, good on him. He tried."
Now, I noticed also in your background, it said that you kind of helped and advised and mentored something like 150 technology companies. I mean, that's a lot of mentoring, a lot of helping. How did that come about? And I know also to include Blackberry, and we all remember that Blackberry. So how did that come about, especially given how you were starting out? I mean, were there certain things that you did that caused them to come to you and say, "Hey, can you help me do what you've done?"
Well, yeah, I mean, that was it. I was an entrepreneur, and I was my company grew very rapidly, so people would seek me out. I do speaking events. That was what we did before we did podcasts, because we do live, I and whatnot. Then people would say, "Oh, can you help me with this?" And then I'm an entrepreneur, and if I could see competitive advantage, I would invest in the company. And particularly competitive advantage would be if it was synergistic with what I do. And I was a computer products distributor. So I was selling technology products. So if you came to me with a technology product, I could say, yes, I'll not only invest, I'll buy $100,000 worth of your product, or $250,000 worth of your product, or $1 million. And that alone could put you on the map. So I was really using the synergies with my core business on that. But it's also what inspires me. I am very inspired by the the startups phase, the raw entrepreneurship. like everyone says you should focus. I'm the opposite of focus. Like I lose interest if it's all focus. I tend to flit. That's what I do.
Wow. So you've been involved with, but you've always been involved in the technology industry until now, because now you're in the appliances, correct?
That's right. So I grew my business, and I left it when we were doing about $2 billion in sales, and I retired and moved to New York for 5 years. My dad got sick, so I moved back to my home. Well, it's not my hometown, but where my parents were living in Guelph. And I sat on the board of this company, Danby Appliances. The CEO resigned, and I said, I can go in and run that for a while. And when I got back running and operating a company, I said, this is what I love to do, operate a company. And then, of course, the ownership group said they wanted me to sell the company. And I said, well, wait a minute, that was going to be my next decade gig. How much do you want for it? They told me, and I said, great, I'll take it. So that's how I ended up owning an appliance company. And I also saw that the appliance companies were a little old and a little slow. And if we could apply the technology speed and just some of the technology process to a smokestack industry, I thought we could have competitive advantage. And the other thing I liked about Danby is Danby gave me the heft. I mean, it's not huge, but we do like 400 million in sales, and that size is a size I liked. When I was in that little retirement stage, I was mentoring and coaching and involved in a bunch of little companies. But on the little startups, you go in and save 10% on their expenses, and that's $20,000. Or you go in and double their sales, and great, they sold $250,000. Where a company like Danby, if we sell 10% more, that's 40 million more sales. If we can save 1%, that's $4 million. Like the numbers give me leverage.
Now that's interesting because especially, given with all the businesses now, a lot of them are going under because of the pandemic, and I guess because they didn't have the advantage or didn't know how to pivot or whatever it was. How have you been able to stay in the game during these uncertain times?
Well, see, I'm an entrepreneur, and entrepreneurs love change. Okay. COVID is a change. So of course I love pivoting. I love doing it. So one thing we did fairly early in the pandemic is we assembled 10,000 ventilators. Now we don't make ventilators, we're not a medical manufacturer or anything like that, but we saw a need. I was worried that we wouldn't have work for staff. So we assembled 10,000 ventilators. That's one example of a pivot. Now, as it turned out, you don't need to pivot when you're in the appliance business in COVID. What happens is everyone starts work at home. They go to the grocery store. They say, I don't want to go to the grocery store every week. They buy a second refrigerator for the garage, or one for their basement, or an extra freezer. So fridges and freezers. And at the start of the pandemic, nobody bought wine coolers. And then all of a sudden, 3 months later, you can't make enough of them. And the reason for that is people are improving their home, because you couldn't go out to dinner with someone. You say, come over to my deck and we'll have a glass of wine. Well, then I need maybe a wine cooler. So even that part of the business did well, because we're part of the improve your home. I'm work at home now. Maybe I need a little bar fridge in my office. It's turned out to be very good for companies like mine.
Wow. So you saw an increase in people buying refrigerators and freezers and different things like that also.
Oh, yeah. Yes. Which I didn't. Of course, when the pandemic started, I thought nobody's going to buy anything. Okay. But then food insecurity became a deal. When you went into the grocery store and there wasn't enough meat on the shelves, or you're worried there's going to be a run on stuff, everybody starts buying Costco quantity stuff and freezing it. Yeah. And we sell freezers. So that part of it worked out well. Now, currently, there's a global supply chain issue. Like the price of containers has gone through the roof, and you can't get trucking, and price of steel's up, price of copper, everything's up, and whatnot. Interestingly, we tend to sell apartment size appliances and entry appliances. And so people are waiting on their big appliance. They buy our little appliance. Okay. And of course, they don't return that in 3 months when they get their real. They put it in their basement. They put it in the garage.
Absolutely.
Right. And gone are the days. I mean, it used to be, if someone's got a refrigerator, well, that's what they need. The number of people who have 2 refrigerators is there's a lot of people with 2 refrigerators. It's just become the norm. Pre-pandemic, 35% of the households had a standalone freezer.
Mhm.
During the pandemic, it's moved up to 50%. So half the population has a standalone freezer. Now, what could happen is when I was in the computer business in Y2K, it actually was relatively lean times for 2001, 2002. And the reason for that is everybody bought new computers. Yeah. Because there was a rumor at that time that computers are all going to stop working on 2000. So it created this and I think the same thing's going to happen in the freezer business. There's going to be because freezer has a useful life of 10 years, 12 years, 15 years. So I think it's going to be a 10-year replacement, because prior to that, the only freezers we were mostly selling were replacements. It didn't tend to be a new, the market wasn't growing much. It's just replace all the freezers 10 years later. The only other thing I guess that drives freezers is energy efficiency. So you could replace a 10-year freezer for free. Like the electricity savings pays for the freezer in 8 months, depending on where you are and what you're paying for electricity, because the new freezers are so much more energy efficient than the old ones.
Well, I tell you what, I'm one of those examples of a person that went out and bought a freezer because during the pandemic, I did the same thing. So I now have a standalone freezer in my house also.
Right.
And it's like you said, because it was one of those things where now, before, just with the refrigerator, you just kind of buy what you need, you put it in there, you use it because you know you could go to the store the next week. But then when the pandemic hit, it was like, oh, now I need to get more stuff, and where am I going to put it? It's not going to all fit in this refrigerator. So there you go. So I could see that. I could see a lot of people doing that and getting the freezers and all. But so tell me, what do you think? Do you think being in the appliance industry instead of retail, do you think that made a difference too in your business during this time? Because a lot of retailers, some of them didn't fare
well, except the key is we make appliances that mostly sell through retailers.
Okay.
So we sell through Costco, Lowe's, Home Depot, Walmart, all of the big retailers, but we also sell through Amazon and through HomeDepot.com. So we're selling through the .com. So what happened is all of a sudden the sales flipped from buying in store to buying on .com, and even the appliance store in your towns will often have a .com. So they're delivering the appliances as opposed to you going and shopping in an appliance store. So it's a little change or pivot in the channel that we're selling. But fundamentally, we weren't killed by that, because usually appliance purchases are destination. People want the appliance. I think the retailers that were hurt, or the companies that were hurt the most, were I didn't go in to buy that shirt, but I walked past it and I liked it and I bought it. Yeah. And now nobody's walking by, but it's who's going to walk past a very rare that someone walks by and says, "Oh, that's a nice fridge, I'll buy it." Like you go out to buy a fridge, you don't generally say that's my impulse buy for the day.
Exactly. Wow, you're right about that. So what do you see as maybe some changes that might be coming in your industry that could disrupt the way you do business right now? Or do you see anything coming in the horizon?
Well, there's always a drive towards energy efficiency. As part of our appliance business, we also sell air conditioners and dehumidifiers. And the commonality of that is they have a compressor. So it's actually the same compressor in a air conditioner that you have in a refrigerator. Okay. And I hate to say it, but I believe in climate change. So the change is, it used to be when you were on the West Coast, you probably didn't need to have air conditioning. But if you lived on the West Coast the last couple of years, you probably need air conditioning. And what we're selling is window and portable air conditioners. So that market is moving out west. Most of the sales of window air conditioners, it's the Midwest part of the states. It's actually not the southern states, even though it's hotter down there. And that's because there's no homes in the southern states that don't have central air conditioning pretty well. So everything is built in and whatnot. And interestingly enough, our sales in Mexico are pretty strong for similar reason, because they don't have as much money. So they'll use a window air conditioner to to cool. But now it's all moving out west. So that's one trend in our industry. And because of climate change, I'm a big environmentalist. So anything we can do to reduce energy, I think that's a trend that will be happening for sure.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And what are some lessons that you've learned over the years that maybe a couple of things that you might want to share with us, some lessons that you've learned as far as being an entrepreneur and keeping your business on track?
So what I've learned as you grow a business, the leader's job, the CEO's job is more to coach on culture and let everyone else make decisions. So I hope my people make all the decisions essentially without me within the culture that we build, so they know how to make the decisions. So I'm big on culture, coach on culture. I'm also big, as part of our culture, at doing things that we have competitive advantage on. So I'd love to say I sell in a competitive market. I do sell in a competitive market, but I don't like going to competitive markets unless I've kind of got an advantage. Right. So what are my advantages, and play in those areas and those niches that I can thrive. So I for your business owners that are watching or listening, I'm very big on niches, because if you have a niche, then you are more likely to be able to become dominant and get more sold than if you're just general purpose.
Exactly.
My opinion.
Yeah. And that's one of the things that I think a lot of people should know going into business, or they should at least hear that you need to find your niche, and that everybody is not your customer in some respects, depending on what your niche is. And so, I know there's people that say, if I charge a certain amount and then you tell me, oh, well, I can't afford that, then maybe you're not my customer. I might not be for you. You might have to go to the person next door that might have something more in your price range or what have you. So that is interesting when you talk about your niche and knowing what that is. So, and in the same vein, I'm going to ask you, what are some challenges that you faced or you might face in the coming years?
So our biggest challenge is supply chain. So, and the price of containers has increased 6 or 7 times. We used to bring a container in for $3,500, $3,000, and now it's $21,000, it's $20,000. And every one of your audience may not be feeling this yet, but if you buy goods, chances are good they will be impacted by those container prices. I'm talking prices from China. Another thing we're working really fast at and diligently is trying to diversify our supply chain so that it's not as much dependent on China. And we do have supply chain in Turkey and Mexico and Malaysia and Thailand, but I'm nervous when you hear, Canadian and U.S. China relations and what's going on with Taiwan and China, and that's a problem that I need to have more diversity around my sourcing of product.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
But that's going to impact all goods, and it's creating inflation in a big way. And in appliances and furniture, I'm not in the furniture business, but in appliances and furniture, it's disproportionately high. And the reason for that is the value per cubic foot is low. I mean, you can buy a bar fridge for a couple $100, but you can only get 500 bar fridges in a container, and the prices, you went from $10 a fridge to $30 a fridge, $40 a fridge, $70 a fridge, and that gets worked into the price that you pay. So the price of appliances has gone up and is going up very, very rapidly. And the price of furniture is the other one that's going up. I mean, couches and stuff like that, they're just through the roof for the same reason, because a couch is only worth, I don't know, $500, $1,000, but you can only get, I have no idea, 20 or 100 in the container, depending on what size they are, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Wow. Now, I just want to take you back just a few to the beginning when I talked about your bio. I remember in there I said that mentioned that you were on the board of Danby, and then you literally bought the company, correct? Or you started running the company?
But yeah, so I was on the board of Danby. The CEO resigned. It happened to be where I was living. I would not actually have taken the opportunity if it didn't happen to be right here. And I said, oh, I can go in and run that for a while. And then as I started running, I said, this is what I like. I like running a company with scale. And this is what I'm going to do for my next decade. And I was happy to go in and run it because I'd already made my money and whatnot. I was happy to be a hired CEO. And then the owners said they wanted me to sell the company. And I said, wait a minute, I was going to do this for my next decade. And so that's when I said, well, how much is it? And I bought the company. So that's how I ended up owning an appliance company. And it is a little cleaner too when I own it, because when I own it, some of my failure, fail often, fail fast, fail cheap things are not right on what we do. And if I had someone else owning the company, they might say, hey, what are you doing? Assembling ventilators, it's a different risk profile. And the other area I was, now the previous owners were really good people and really supported me, but I was using company resources to support some of my charitable work. And but that's a conflict. When I'm a hired gun, I'm not, if I don't own the company. So if I ask one of the truck drivers to go pick up some furniture, if I own the company, well, I can pay my truck drivers to do whatever they want. Right. But if I work for someone else, I can't do that. And that's the same way with my time. So if I was a hired gun and I decide, I want to sit on some outside boards and stuff like that, it's more, you have to basically ask for permission. I'm not going to be here on Thursday because I'm going to be in a board meeting on a completely different company. And the owners have the right to say, wait a minute, you work for us. No, you can't do that, or take a day's vacation, right?
Now, let me ask you this, and I asked this question because I want to see if a lot of what the information that I bring, I know that I've talked about this and you've heard me talk about it. I like to bring information that will help women to excel in their business or what have you. So being on a board, do you think that was important for you in order to be able to get, I guess, that inside track with Danby, or let me just say, how important do you think it is for an entrepreneur to also consider being on boards?
Well, this is the time for women to get on the boards. Every board is trying to hire and bring in women to be on their boards. Okay. The downside is it takes time, and there is also liability. You need to make sure you have insurance and stuff like that. But to some extent, when you sit on a board, if the company you're on the board of does something stupid, then you get your name in the press for doing something stupid, just like they do. So there's a reputational risk. But I really like it, and it did give me a Rolodex. I would not have been running Danby if I was not on the board of Danby, I'm quite sure. And I get a lot of other contacts and help from being on other boards. And I learned from my other boards things that I should do at Danby. So I get an economic briefing at one of my board meetings, and I say, oh, well, this is important to Danby. So and that's the way most boards work. They sort of cross-fertilize. So all boards sort of cross-fertilize with other boards, because most board members are on 3 boards, 2 boards, 4 boards. So they're on multiple boards.
Wow. That's interesting. And like you said, as far as women being on board, that's always the question. If they should be on boards, or how easy is it to get on boards, or what have you. So that's why I wanted to ask you that question to see. Yeah.
I mean, I'm a big advocate, and I believe that, when you're a woman, you have competitive disadvantage and you have competitive advantage. When you have, don't be shy about taking the competitive advantages and the perks, because you're going to have it the other way at other times. So, right now, there is a trend towards every single board adding woman, and not only one, but adding 2 or 3 or 4. And so there's a big trend away from old white men to women on the boards, and so take advantage of that. I really think that it can be a great time for women and boards.
Yeah, on board. Great. That was great advice. I'm so glad that you shared that. And so that brings me to my next question. If you had one piece of advice to leave with our viewers and our listeners, what would that, so that that would help them to succeed in business? What would that advice be?
Well, I know the secret to happiness. And that, you're going to say that's sort of weird advice to give for business. But the secret to happiness is being grateful for what you have, not ungrateful for what you've lost, not ungrateful for what other people have had. And what I've learned is gratitude leads to success. Yeah. And having a practice of gratitude and being grateful, it makes you happier. And when I'm happy, I can do anything. If I'm not happy and focus on the negative, and as I said, I'm a failure guy, right? So having a failure does not make you a failure, and blah blah blah. So I stub my toe quite a bit, but at the end of the day, I win more races because I start more races. Wow. So that's my advice: be grateful, develop a practice of gratitude, be grateful for what you have, not ungrateful for what you've lost, and not ungrateful for what other people have.
Thank you so much. And also, too, I don't know if you like to give out a website or your email or what have you. So if anyone has any questions, but if so, please feel free to do that so that if any of the viewers and listeners might want to contact you, ask you any questions, or maybe even just have you to come in and speak, because I know you said you also do speaking to talk to some of their employees, or maybe to do some consulting or something for them, knowing that you've helped all these businesses to succeed. How can they reach out to you?
Okay, so the Danby website is just www.danby.com. Really simple. And if you have Google, you can Google Danby Appliances, you can find it. Matter of fact, if you can't find it, you probably don't deserve to buy a Danby appliance.
That's true.
And as far as me goes, I'm a big LinkedIn person.
Okay.
And if you reach out on LinkedIn and say you heard me on the show, the reason you have to say that is I don't accept everyone who reaches out to me. But and again, I'm a big believer in LinkedIn. I mean, you're asking for what's one of the tips. One of the tips for your viewers, listeners is make a habit of connecting to 10 people on LinkedIn every day, reaching out. You're like, if you send 10 invitations, you may only get accepted by 3 or 5. But if you send 10 a day, then in a year, you're going to have another 1,000 people that you're connected to, and add value to that network, and they will add value to you. And it's not totally you don't say, well, I'm only going to do this because they're going to do something for me. No, I find that 2 years later, something comes back to me.
Absolutely. And you're so right about that. One of the things that I like to do, especially with the people that I'm connected to on LinkedIn and all, I even you know how they let you know when it's the person's birthday or anniversary or something like that. I always send a little note, congratulations, a happy birthday. You know, that way it's just kind of staying in touch. Don't have to have a long conversation. Just, happy birthday, congratulations, or what have you. Yes.
Well, I send updates out every day. The update is 90% of them they're all for the value of the reader. I send quotes from famous people. I send a link to an article that I think is interesting. Yeah. And so it's not like buy from me, buy from me, buy from me.
Exactly.
But then occasionally I will say, oh, now we've got a new wine cooler with a picture to a grand opening or something like that. So occasionally I do, but mostly otherwise people are going to shut you down. You're just a spammer. But when they read my LinkedIn feed, they say, oh, that's a good quote. I'll share it with it's adding value to their life.
Wow. That is great advice. Thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your success story with us. I truly appreciate it. Of course, you've been listening to Jim Estill, and we are on the Success for Women show. We're here every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'd also like to have you to make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Also share this episode because we had some great nuggets that came out. And if anyone would like to reach out to me, you can go to my website, which is www.exwsi.com. And while you're there, make sure you download my free 3-part video series on 3 things every woman should do to position herself for executive leadership. You can also email me at info@exwsi.com. Again, make sure that you share this episode, subscribe to our channel, and also like the episode so that we can make sure as many people see this as possible. Again, we are here every Thursday at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm your host, Dr. Madeline Ann Lewis. I want to thank you again, Jim, for joining us. Thank you for bringing those great nuggets to us. I also want to thank my viewers and listeners. And as always, be well and stay safe out there. See you again next Thursday.
I got the eye of the tiger.